Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
La Crosse Tribune, Wisconsin Public Radio, WIZM Radio, Midwest Family Lacrosse, the La Crosse Area Chamber of Commerce, Leader Ethics Wisconsin, the League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area, and the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Thank you to all of these sponsors for their incredible support. The candidates for the 96th Assembly District are Representative Loren Oldenburg and Josefine Jaynes. Loren Oldenburg is the candidate of the Republican Party, while Josefine Jaynes is the candidate of the Democratic Party. The format for this debate is as follows. Each candidate will receive 1 minute for an opening statement. Then the members of our media panel will take turns asking questions of the candidates. When asked the question, a candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to respond. After that, the other candidate will have 45 seconds for rebuttal and follow up. We will conclude the debate with closing statements by each candidate. Our media panel today features Mal Meyer from WKBT News 8 Now, Mike Biermeister from WXOW News 19, and Ezra Wall from Wisconsin Public Radio. The League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area is generously providing assistance with keeping track of speaking time. Thank you, Ellen France, for providing this assistance. I asked the candidates to refrain from interrupting one another, and I asked the candidates to respect the time limits for their responses. I will reinforce time cues as needed during the debate. Through a random draw, we have determined that Josefine Jaynes will go first, and Loren Oldenburg will go second. Ms. Jaynes, you have 1 minute for your opening statement. Over to you.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone who made this possible. During COVID, it has been difficult to get our messaging out there, and debates like this are perfect for voters to truly see the differences between the candidates on their ballot. I was raised in this district, right outside of Reedstown. And throughout my life, I have come to love this community. Being raised in a military family, you learn the value of service. My dad, showed me the importance of service, not only to our communities, but to our country. And growing up, it was never a question of how, it was never a question of if I was going to serve, but how I was going to serve. I got involved in local politics last election cycle in 2018 in Paul Burr's campaign. And I thought Paul was the best candidate to represent us. But the dark money and gerrymandering, I want to change how things are done in Madison.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Representative Oldenburg, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, all the event sponsors and local media members for being here today and put on this debate. My name is Loren Oldenburg. I'm the current state representative for the Wisconsin 96th Assembly District, which includes parts of Monroe, most of Vernon, and Crawford counties. I'm a fourth-generation farmer, a small business owner, and a citizen legislator. I think the families and farmers of the 96th district understands the value of having someone in office that understands our communities and what's important to them to make sure they have active voice in Madison and can get the results they want. That's what I ran in 2018 for. I was able to do this session, and what I plan to do, and I'm fortunate to get reelected this fall. That's why I'm asking voters in the 96th for the support again in November 3rd election.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. We now turn to our media panel. We have a question for Josefine Jaynes from Mal Meyer of WKBT News 8 Now. Over to you, Mal.
Thank you, Anthony. Agricultural exports are down. Farmers have lost millions this year. Wisconsin is leading the nation in farm bankruptcies. What would you do to ensure that farmers can stay in agriculture?
Ms. Jaynes.
You know, our federal government has really messed with our farmers, and it's unacceptable. I was at the Dairy Expo the day that our Secretary of Ag, Sonny Perdue, said, "Get big or get out." And that's not what our farmers want to hear. Our district is made up of small family farms. Telling them to get big or get out, it's unacceptable. And our farmers, they don't want to have to rely on these subsidies and offset payments. They just want to make a profit for the quality produce that they produce. What we need is a change on the federal level. And then on the state level, we just need to do all that we can to support some of our farmer-led initiatives like the Tainter Creek Watershed Project that are actively trying to help our family farmers survive. And we just need to get funding to some of these farmer-led initiatives because farmers know what farmers need. And we need to make sure that we can keep the identity of our small family farmers.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Yeah, as a lifelong farmer, a fourth generation dairy farmer, I definitely hits home when exports are down, prices are down. Very fortunate right now, you know, beans have hit $10 again and corn is getting over $4 again. So it has become profitable. And as a state legislature, we can't control what the federal do, but at the local level, we can. So we can actually create legislation or put in possible grant money in for the diversification of small farmers, you know, produce farmers at any levels. Could be organic, conventional, non-GMO. So we got to look at all those aspects of that. So those are important things that we can do at the state legislature level. Also, I'm part of the Farmland Preservation Program. I've been part of that program for 12 years. It's a tax credit to the farmers that helps them get dollars back for keeping agricultural in agricultural. So I sponsored a bill to expand that in this year, and I'm looking forward to doing that also again. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we have a question for Representative Oldenburg from Mike Biermeister of WXOW News 19. Mike, take it away.
Thanks for that, Anthony. We've seen at least 5 different assisted living homes close in Vernon County for a variety of reasons, from loss of funding, low utilization, flooding, and COVID-19. Yet, the population is only going to get older and people will need these options. How do you plan to use your legislative power to secure funding for these long-term care facilities?
Well, that's a very important subject. You know, my mom was in the assisted living or nursing home when her last days of her life. So it is very important that we have that access and ability for people to have that in their last years of their life. So this last budget, we put more dollars in reimbursement funding for nursing homes, got them up to the possibility that they can actually make some money. Very fortunate in Vernon County that they have a county-run one, and they are right now building an assisted living part of that. So the process works good. As a state legislature, we have to address that through funding, adequate funding for these nursing homes to be able to, you know, make money. Because if they don't make money, they'll close their doors. And then also, if you have these businesses going, it will definitely, you know, employs people and helps the community that we live in.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Ms. Jaynes.
I work at a local nursing home. I get to see what the lack of proper, Medicaid reimbursement rates, how that affects our nursing homes. The nursing home that I work at loses $80 a day per resident on Medicaid. 2/3 of the residents are on Medicaid. And if we don't, corporate greed is quick to consolidate and eliminate, but we have to safeguard these services, not only for the services, but for the jobs that they provide our community. If we don't allow our older citizens to age in place, we've failed them. So addressing the Medicaid reimbursement rate is vital.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Next, we have a question for Ms. Jaynes from Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra, over to you.
Important as agriculture is to your district, in certain parts of the state, farming-related pollution is also a concern to residents in terms of groundwater quality and other issues. How would you, as a state legislator, balance the needs of the environment for the residents of Wisconsin with the needs of farmers to be able to make a living with as little interference as possible?
Yeah, that is such a major kind of conflict right now, because our farmers need help, and regulations make it harder and harder for them to farm. But also we need clean water, and if we can help our farmers transition to regenerative ag, where they can be the heroes of this our environment. Retaining water on the land and sequestering carbon, but we can't ask them to do it alone. We have to help them. So providing funding in order to allow them to start to transition to more cleaner ways of ag is vital in creating that balance between allowing our farmers to farm and keeping our water clean.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Representative Oldenburg.
Yeah, as a farmer, we're probably one of the most concerned and the greatest stewardships of our land. And through this process of clean water, we've done some studies here in the 96th district and also in the southwestern part of Wisconsin. Comes out here, there was 13 water task bills passed in an assembly, 10 of them unanimously. And I co-sponsored some of them, and I authored some of them also. So I believe that is vital that we get those bills passed in the Senate, that we can move this forward. And so I'm asking the Senate to, hey, come in, pass these bills, lest we're going to have to take it. Because we want clean water, and Wisconsin agricultural wants to be part of that solution and figure out what was going on. So.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we have a question for Representative Oldenburg from Mal Meyer of WKBT News 8 Now. Mal, over to you.
Communities in this district have been devastated by widespread flooding. We saw that in 2018 and again in some areas in 2019. How would you help residents and businesses rebuild from that flooding?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been fortunate enough to be involved in these planning process. The Coon Creek Watershed Project and the West Fork have gotten a federal grant to do the study of those projects. So I've been in on those meetings, and I'm very looking forward to what the results come out of it, because I want the watershed looked at. How do we farm? How do we practice our farming practices so we can keep that water longer on the land before it hits down in the valleys? And then, that's a federal study. Come to the state level, once this study is done, especially in our region, that, hey, how do we maintain whatever structures or whatever practices we do at the federal level, and where can we come in as a state level to help fund these? I think it's very vital for the Cooley region, because it affects tourism, it affects families, it affects business. So I truly believe as a state legislator, we can put some money behind it, possibly grants, some programs that we can help maintain some flood control issues going forward. I am looking forward to see what this study comes out of, and possibly put some great solutions to this subject.
Thank you. Ms. Jaynes.
Call it what you want, but everybody knows that something has changed, because we see these 100-year, 500-year floods every 2 years. And it makes no sense economically that we keep rebuilding and throwing money at problems that just keep happening. So we need proactive solutions that will prevent the destruction of our communities and protect our communities. And it's obvious that we need to build our infrastructure to protect people and communities, or get them out of the way. We have 5 dams in this district that are currently damaged and aren't able to protect these communities right now, and it makes them sitting ducks. So we need to make sure that our infrastructure can handle it. And not only that, but have a proactive solution. Try to find ways to keep water on the land so we don't even have to worry about not have a reactive response, but a proactive response to flooding.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Next, we head over to Mike Biermeister of WXOW News 19. A question for Josefine Jaynes. Mike, over to you.
On the topic of infrastructure, the American Society of Professional Engineers Wisconsin section gave Wisconsin State's overall infrastructure a C, roads a D-. So my question to you is, how do you plan to essentially secure funding for road and bridge projects in Vernon County that have been affected by flooding and other weather-like damages?
Yeah, Wisconsin was once known for its good roads, and over the past 10 years, things have changed, and now we're known for having some of the worst roads in the country. In Vernon County alone, there are 280 miles of roads, and we're only able to fix 4 miles a year. If you do the math, that's not sustainable. And we need to fund our roads. And oftentimes, people say that the solution is raising the gas tax, but I'm hesitant because it disproportionately affects our rural communities. I would only be open to that if gas prices were already low and it was shown that the funds would be evenly spread, because in rural America, oftentimes we have to drive further distances to go to work, which means we have to pay for more gas. And it disproportionately affects our rural citizens. But at the same time, we need to fund our roads, and we need to fix our roads so that Wisconsin is known again for having great roads.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Thank you. In this last budget, we put $320 million extra dollars in for state road projects, which had moved some of those projects up in the state and in this area. Also, we put $90 million into local roads, and that was split up in three: 30 million, 30 for counties, for townships and cities. Well, that got reduced down to 75 million, but $1.4 billion were requested in this program. So we see a need, and I hopefully that we can go forward in the next budgets, keep doing this 90 million or whatever that dollar amount to really pinpoint these projects going forward. So yes, we need to look at revenue streams. How do we figure out how new revenue is coming in? Got electrical cars coming in. How do we access that revenue? So we have to look at all aspects. How do we actually fund the road projects going forward? So
thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we head over to Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. A question for Representative Oldenburg. Ezra?
Thanks. A lot of the representatives and people running for those seats that I've talked to this year tout Wisconsin's public education system as high quality, and yet some students continuously get left behind even in our system. A report from Wisconsin Public Radio about a year ago indicated the widest achievement gap in the country between Black and white students exists here in Wisconsin. What can state legislators do to make sure that the public education system is effective and equitable for all of its students?
Well, number one, we have to give the opportunity for kids to have education. And I truly believe this is, for school choice, be able to go where they need to be fit. Number two, especially in my area or in this district, have to have access to broadband. We have to have access so they can actually get on the internet and get that education that they need. And so that's very important to me and to this local area. Also, we have to fund the schools to where the point that, they get the education. Kids can get that education. So I truly believe that. Also, this first term I was down there, I emphasized youth apprenticeships. I championed that bill, got a $5 million appropriation into the budget. So they actually, kids might not want to have to go to a four-year college, but they can get some soft skills, some youth apprenticeship skills, and figure out what they want to do and don't have that high debt going forward in the college end of it. So those are the things that I want to keep championing through at the state level, make sure broadband has access to these kids so they get that education that they need. So.
Thank you. Ms. Jaynes.
The number one priority is funding our schools. You know, when those property tax freezes went in the early 90s, they were only meant to last 5 years because they were supposed to rein in the overspending schools. But what happened is our rural schools got locked in at their conservative budgets, and now those levies have lasted for over 20 years, and the formula disproportionately affects our rural schools. So adjusting that formula is vital because, you know, education is a great equalizer, and zip code shouldn't determine education.
Thank you. Next, we head over to Mal Meyer from WKBT News 8 Now. A question for Josefine Jaynes. Mal, take it away.
The world's top scientists say we're at a critical time to address climate change. Otherwise, we might continue to see devastating environmental impacts. Do you believe that humans are contributing to this change, and how could the state further address this?
A lot of the issues that we're facing are pressing, and we're running out of time. And that's why I'm running now. I may not have the luxury to wait until I'm middle-aged to run. You know, my generation will be impacted by the policies being created today. We inherit that world. And I mean, if we can start transitioning Wisconsin to a greener future, think of the jobs that will create. And if we're the leaders in the country and we start doing that first, we'll get the jobs first. And that can help us bring people back to the area, creating new jobs, you know, economic development. Wisconsin could really be a leader in this fight. And also our farmers can be leaders too. If we help them transition to, you know, regenerative ag, sequestering carbon, you know, retaining water on the land. If we can provide funding to ensure that Wisconsin has a green future, I think it will do great things for our state. And my generation is really excited about that.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Yes, I know the governor has put a climate task force together. There's like 40-some members. They put out a number of bills or ideas. I've not seen them yet, so I'm very looking forward to seeing them. And yes, we have to address this because we are living in a changing world. And so what we can do at the state level is provide funding or provide opportunities to get cleaner, but also not hurt the economy or even help the economy in a lot of ways is something that we have at a state level to address. Comes right down to, you know, keeping, like you say, keeping the water on the land so it does not wash out our soil and our resources down the river and stuff. So yes, we have to look at all avenues to get cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we go to Mike Biermeister of WXOW News 19. A question for Representative Oldenburg. Mike, take it away.
What letter grade would you give the state of this district's agriculture right now, and why?
Can you repeat that?
What letter grade would you give the state of the district's agriculture right now, and why?
Well, letter grade, I would say, you know, we're in that B+ range. A lot of it is because we have organic, we have non-GMO, and conventional. You know, in my time at the Westbury Creamery Board, we brought on organic. So we had diversity there. So individual can actually get into organic or get into conventional and make a living here, or even raise vegetables, organic vegetable, conventional vegetables and stuff like that. So I believe in this area, we have great resources and ability to diversify, get in different avenues of agricultural, unlike other areas where they just raise, you know, commodities. We have dairy, we have beef raising, we have commodity, we have vegetables, organic, conventional. So we are very fortunate to live in this area, and we have to protect this area from that change, so people can actually get in the different avenues of agriculture they want to. So I believe, you know, B+ because we always got room to improve. So
thank you, Ms. Jaynes.
Yeah, I'd say a solid B+ as well, because I mean, there's always room for improvement, but we have that diversification. And then not only that diversification that Mr. Oldenburg just spoke about, but niche farming as well. We see so many different types of farming in the area. And we're really fortunate to live in such a great area where we're able to do that. And we have, organic and conventional, coexisting in this small district. And, our local farmer markets are full of excellent produce because that niche farming capabilities in this district.
Thank you. Next, I have a question submitted to me by the League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area, and I'd like to give each of you 1 minute and 15 seconds to respond to this, starting with Ms. Jaynes. The question from the League of Women Voters reads as follows. The majority of voters in Wisconsin favor a fair method of redistricting, about 70%. 54 counties have passed a resolution and 17 have passed a referendum supporting fair maps. 11 counties have a referendum on the November ballot. With this overwhelming support, have you signed or will you sign the following Fair Maps pledge, which reads, quote, as a candidate for Wisconsin State Assembly, I support an independent process to draw legislative district maps. I pledge to support fair maps legislation to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin and will refuse to vote for any gerrymandering scheme. If elected, I will fight to ensure the next redistricting process results in fair maps for the next decade. Ms. Jaynes, first to you, do you or would you support that pledge?
Absolutely, 100%. Voters should decide their representatives, not the other way around. And our counties, the 3 counties that we represent, are in favor of fair maps. So I believe that whoever represents this district should be as well, regardless of party. Wisconsin was once known for its good government. And 10 years ago, when they drew those maps, now we're one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. That's not a recognition that we want. And I support the governor's nonpartisan redistricting commission. I think party politics should have no room in drawing maps. Because like I said, voters should decide their representatives, not the other way around. That's the only way to have a fair democracy.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Representative Oldenburg.
Thank you. As my first time down there, Representative Vining out of the 14th district put forth a AB 303. It's a fair maps bill, and I signed on as a co-sponsor of that. As far as signing a pledge, I believe it's would be irresponsible as a legislator to sign a pledge without seeing the actual legislation and the writing of that bill. You may be like 80% of that bill, but maybe 20% might hurt district or your constituents. So, that kind of backs you into the corner as far as signing a pledge, going forward. So, but no, I signed on to AB 303. I think, in the district of what I represent right now, I do not know how it could be changed, but there's other parts of the states that definitely have to be looked at as far as that goes. And there's laws and regulations and constitution that we have to follow going forward. But definitely being I sign on to AB 303, I definitely am in favor of it.
Thank you. Next, we head to Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. A question for Representative Oldenburg. Ezra.
Thanks. Representative Oldenburg, I want to circle back to the last question that I asked about public schools. In response to that question, you suggested that school choice was part of the answer to that question. I would like to ask you, how does school choice strengthen public schools? Doesn't it take money from already struggling schools and move it to more popular schools?
Well, I'm looking, as far as, yes, it takes, you still get part of that funding to that local district, and then some goes to the other schools, but it also gives the opportunity where I look at school choice to say, hey, my family grew up in this area. I want to go to a local league. I look at Westby and Viroqua. It'd be easier for my parents or grandparents if my kids went to Viroqua or Westby, that they can work and help out back and forth. So that's what I'm looking for, school choice. That, hey, we have an opportunity for kids to go there. they got better, a little better education, or what they emphasize on as far as that goes. So.
Thank you, Miss Jaynes.
Yeah, in regards to school choice, I think oftentimes people view it more as public versus private. And the thing in this district is, for many kids, the public school that they're in the district of is their only option, because their parents either have to work 2 jobs and can't afford to drive them somewhere. So for those kids who need the public schools that they're in the district of, we need to make sure that our schools are properly funded, because education is the great equalizer, and we need to make sure that those students have the opportunity to succeed.
Thank you. Next, we head over to Mel Meyer of WKBT News 8 Now. A question for Ms. Jaynes. Mel?
The death of George Floyd brought renewed attention to inequities experienced by Black people to the forefront. Do you support further oversight to law enforcement or calls to reallocate funding in order to address these concerns?
I support our local law enforcement. I have family members in local law enforcement. But as we talked about with farming, there's always opportunities to improve. I think oftentimes we ask our police officers to do jobs that they're not trained for, such as be, a mental health expert or a substance abuse counselor. And if we could get funding into those programs, so that we can take that load off of our police officers, so that they can do their jobs protecting our communities, not having to deal with these other issues. I think that benefits everyone. And really, though, it comes down to, it has to be a discussion between local law enforcement and the communities that they serve, because every community is different. And I think we just need to make sure that everyone feels safe in our communities. And that means, keeping our police officers and allowing them to do their jobs, but also making sure that individuals of color feel safe in our communities as well.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Yes, I truly believe that it's a learning process to everyone's level as far as, inequities of race, color, and everything. And we have to learn as individuals. We have to take initiative to learn that in individuals. As far as support the police officers, I 100% support the police officers. I don't believe in defunding the police, because everything lands on the police right now. I mean, domestic, all kinds of calls they get to come and serve us and protect us. So I don't believe in defunding police. I had a great opportunity to be on the suicide task forces last year, and there's a lot of avenues that we have to look at. We have to fund mental health, education going forward. So I truly believe that learning and educating in this whole process is very important to look at all avenues.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Now we go to Mike Biermeister of WXOW News 19. A question for Representative Oldenburg. Mike?
Thanks, Anthony. And this is a question that I asked in the last debate, but I still feel it's important, especially with an office like this. But WisPolitics reported in one of their recent reviews that Wisconsin has had the least active full-time legislature in the nation since the start of the pandemic, finding that other states that have full-time legislatures met 18 times more frequently than their Wisconsin counterpart. As Wisconsin faces more cases and deaths from COVID-19, how will you rise above partisan politics to see Wisconsinites get the care and support they need facing the virus?
Yeah. As the legislation sits down every legislation period, both parties agree on what the timeline of our legislation is. It runs from January to April. And April 14th, we came in and actually passed, a COVID relief bill. Put $75 million into the coffin for the governor to be able to tap in. He has not touched it today, as of today. He has total access of the $2 billion in the CARES Act money, how to appropriate it. And he has done, I thought, a fairly decent job as far as appropriation. He gave some farmers some help and other avenues there and stuff like that. So that's all on him. As far as being inactive, I've helped over 125 people individually that have called my office or called my personal phone on unemployment issues. So yes, things are going beyond behind the scenes as far as, it's not out in public. And as far as what we are still very active as far as that goes. Until, we have exact needs. Yes, I truly believe we need to come in and say, hey, we got to address this issue, address that as far as dollars or, legislation to help businesses move forward and recover, through this pandemic issues.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes.
It is really unfortunate that Wisconsin has, we're one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, and we have the most inactive legislature in the country. Wisconsin was once known for its good government. How have we strayed so far from that? And yes, our legislators are, they're doing things in their offices, but that whole gavel in, gavel out, 15-second sessions, and not being in the state house, but going to the courthouse to sue our governor over a mask mandate. I think we see where the priorities are for this legislature, and that's why we need change. And yes, it's on both sides, but we need change.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Next, we have a question for Ms. Jaynes from Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra, over to you.
Many families have been devastated by COVID-19, but many businesses have as well by having to adapt to certain public health restrictions and the shutdown and everything like that. With unemployment still double what it was in January, even though it's come down a little bit, what should state legislators be doing to make sure that while we act in the interest of public health, we also act to protect small businesses that are in danger of closing?
First of all, our federal government really dropped the ball with this. This could have been over in 4 weeks, yet here we are months later, still battling this virus. And then when it was up to our state government, they dropped the ball as well. Our governor put in a mask mandate and then they sued him. And that has caused this pandemic to continue. Our small businesses could have been on the road to recovery. Instead, they're still waiting to see what regulation is going to change today. You know, they have to continue adapting. And we're so lucky in this district to have great small businesses that have really adapted and done, you know, no contact pickups and carryouts. And also our community has really come together to try to support these small businesses, since our legislature isn't. Our families, our farmers, and our small businesses need relief. And yes, there was a relief bill passed in April, but it's October and this pandemic is still ongoing. We just need to make sure that our rural communities not only survive this pandemic, but emerge successfully and thrive afterwards.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Yes, we have to be there as far as to help the small businesses to survive. I threw the last order that the governor put out there. He put $100 million into grant programs, and even through in prior parts of it, he put grants programs for the hospitalities and through the restaurant business. So yes, we have to address that. I believe in our community that we have businesses have followed the mask requirements, the CDC guidelines, and done an excellent job. And we have to rely on the people doing the best for themselves. You know, if you live with a vulnerable person, you know, take extra precaution. If you work at a vulnerable place, take extra precaution. So we got to put the people in charge here too. So.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we have a question for Representative Oldenburg from Mal Meyer of WKBT News 8 Now. Mal, take it away.
Going off of this, top Republicans and Democrats in the state have differed on how to reopen during the pandemic. That includes suing over the safer at home order and supporting a challenge to the mask mandate. Should Republicans be supporting these challenges when public health is at risk?
Well, the thing is, you know, we need to be at the table, part of making the decisions. You know, we all have to be up there in front. Hey, let's make out the best decisions like that. We could have gone in and overturned the mask mandate. We did not do it because my businesses called me and said, hey, someone said, I'm happy to have that mask mandate in because that way I know people coming in and protects my employees and protects the people that are actually coming in my district. I got numerous business calls there. And when I go around my district, I see, okay, businesses are adhering to that. Go to restaurants. They walk in with a mask, take it off while they eat and stuff like that. So I think we have to let it up to people to do the right thing, you know. And like I said before, if you live with a vulnerable person, elderly, or have underlying health conditions, you know, you need to, take extra precaution. If you work in possibly, like a nursing home, you have to take extra precaution because those people you work with are very vulnerable. But we got to let that up to the individual person.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes.
Due to this partisan bickering, we've seen the numbers rise. And we're at war with this virus. And life during wartime looks differently. When people had to use blackout curtains so that they wouldn't get bombed at night, nobody said, I have the right to look out my window at night, because they understood that their actions had a rippling effect to their community. And yes, if you live with someone who's vulnerable or you work at a place where someone is vulnerable, you need to take extra precautions. But how long does it have to keep on going when you have people who are blatantly ignoring these precautions? Our public health officials are tired. They're putting their lives at stake for us and our loved ones, and we need to help them. We need to work to stop this pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes. Next, we have a question for Ms. Jaynes from Mike Biermeister of WXOW News 19. Mike, over to you.
Illinois and Michigan have legalized medicinal and recreational marijuana. Minnesota is currently looking at this issue, and in 2018, Wisconsinites said that they would support legalization. Do you think Wisconsin should start looking seriously at legalizing medicinal or recreational marijuana to help generate more tax income?
I think that medicinal marijuana the research has shown that could benefit our citizens. When it comes to recreational marijuana, I'm a little bit more hesitant. If we do legalize that, we need to make sure that we do it in a way that our farmers are the ones who will be profiting from that, and not out-of-state individuals coming into Wisconsin to try to profit off of that. We need to make sure that we have a system set in place that our farmers will be the ones growing it and producing it. But I think it really could help with revenue, and with tax revenue. So if we do legalize it, we need to tax it. But I'm a little hesitant when it comes to that. Just like anything, we really need to look at the process of how we're going to do that. But when it comes to medical marijuana, I think research has shown it can help our individuals in our community. So it's one of those issues where it just needs to be an ongoing discussion, and we need to make sure that proper we set it up in a proper way, so that Wisconsinites aren't taken advantage of.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
On the medical marijuana question, yes, that has to be looked at and something I could get behind. There was a couple bills that came through legislation, and it was varied for a number of plants you can grow and grow. So we really have to look at that, how that is overlooked. But I see it could be beneficial to a certain patients, possible cancer patient, or some patients that are in a lot of pain. As far as legalizing marijuana, it is still illegal federally. So I definitely would not get behind legalizing recreational marijuana.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Next, we have a question for Representative Oldenburg from Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra?
Thanks. Wisconsin is majority white, in fact, by quite a wide margin, majority white, especially in southwestern Wisconsin, where the number is somewhere around 90%. What would you do to amplify and center the voices of minorities in your district so that their needs can be addressed and so that they feel as though that they're being heard and have a voice at the table?
Like I do for any individual that lives in my district. My office is open at the Capitol. My phone, a lot of people call me personally on my cell phone. They have a need and want. Hey, bring it to me. And I'm your voice going to Madison, and I will continue. It doesn't matter, what race you are, because that is very important. Because everyone should have a voice for their needs and wants, and they're limited. And I tell any group that I go to speak at is, you are my eyes and ears out there. I can't be every place in this district at all the time. So I emphasize that to any group that I speak to is like, you got to reach out to me, ask me, tell me what's going on that affects you personally or affects your organization. And I think that's what we need to do as legislators, is listen and react. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jaynes.
As a representative, I'll be open to I'll be accessible to individuals, but not only that, but I'll seek them out. I want to know, how can I help people of color in my community? How can I help members of the LGBTQ community, minorities, groups that I'm not a part of? How can I help them? I want to be educated on their needs, on their issues, because so that I'll be available. I post my phone number and my email address everywhere for people to contact me. But not only that, I'll go to them first so that I have a clear understanding. And when there are bills on the floor that affect those individuals, I'll talk to them. I'll talk to them directly.
Thank you. Next, we have a question for Ms. Jaynes from Mal Meyer of WKBT News 8 Now. Mal.
Governor Tony Evers called the legislature into special session last fall to debate two bills that would expand background checks to private gun sales and allow law enforcement to temporarily take someone's guns if they pose a threat to themselves or others. The Assembly and Senate did not debate these issues and gavelled in and gavelled out seconds later. Should the legislature have debated these bills, and how do you stand on these issues?
I am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment. My family owns guns. The first time I met my opponent was at a memorial trap shoot. But I've also sat through active shooter drills when in high school, and they're terrifying. The first day of school isn't spent talking about what you did last summer in our schools. It's spent talking about what to do if a man with a gun comes into the school. And kids feel safe at school because at the end of the day, the teacher says, if it comes down to it, I'll stand between you and the man with a gun. And that's unacceptable. We have failed our children. So while I am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment, I believe in common sense reform like background checks and red flag laws. And gaveling in and gaveling out, Wisconsin was once known for its good government. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion, but when you lose the ability to have a discussion on an issue, that's when that's an issue in itself. We have to have the ability to have discussions because that's how you find solutions. And when things like that happen, when they gavel in and gavel out, that's when you know you need a change of leadership because they're not leading.
Thank you. Representative Oldenburg.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a believer and a supporter of the Second Amendment. And also, as far as it comes down to education, and also comes down, hey, bring the people to the table. Discussion is a good thing. Where can we help? Where does it infringes on our freedoms and our benefits? But we have to bring it to the table. Yes, we should have more discussions long, especially with the people that are directly affected by that. Comes down to also mental illness. I was on the suicide task force. I mean, we have to do funding there. Is it a mental issue? Is it a finance issue? Is it a gun control issue? We have to definitely discuss that and bring it to the forefront. Hey, and bring everyone to the table.
Thank you. Next, we head over to Mike Biermeister from WXOW News 19. A question for Representative Oldenburg. Mike, over to you.
We went over a number of issues already, from COVID-19 to agriculture, to roads, to so many different things. So just to put it in order for the people who are watching, what would you prioritize if elected? What would you want to sponsor a bill on or just get the ground running with if elected into the
Well, number one, I'm hoping the Senate will come in, and there's about 150 bills over there in the Senate that we already passed in Assembly. So if they don't come in, the water tax bills that have already been presented, we will have to retake them up again, and I hope to help champion them through. I believe because that's just a start, to help clean up or protect our groundwater. Also, I got a bill that was passed at the end of the session is a processing grant bill to help put grants out there for small processing that produce less than 50 million pounds of product a year. That's bill sitting over in the Senate. I do not know if it's going to go anywhere. Those are two main bills. Also, I got a Ontario TIF bill that I helped champion through. That's sitting over in the Senate so they can create a second TIF and move some of their businesses out of their flood zone into an area, some land that they want to buy and create an industrial park, also some buildings and some new businesses. So those are three main bills I can think of right now. We also have to address transportation, education, broadband. We put 48 million in the last budget. I'm hoping to keep expanding that also. So definitely, there's a lot on the plate, and I'm looking forward to championing a lot of them through.
Thank you, Miss Jaynes.
The majority in the Senate, you're a member of their party. You should be pressuring them to put these bills on the floor. You should be advocating for these bills that you've passed and advocating that they take them up. That's your party. For me, the number one issue is COVID relief. Nothing matters if our communities can't survive this pandemic. We need to make sure that relief is getting to our communities, to our families, our farmers, our small businesses, and to go from there. Because right now, COVID, making sure that our communities are healthy and thriving is vital.
Thank you. We go to Ezra Wall with a question for Josefine Jaynes.
Partisan gridlock is a major topic of discussion among voters, it seems like constantly, and ending it is a popular election year promise from politicians and people who hope to be politicians. So I want to ask you, and hopefully each candidate will have an opportunity to respond. What can your party do better to end partisan gridlock?
Yeah, it definitely takes two to tango. And the gridlock is caused by both parties. And like I've said, once you lose the ability to have a discussion, that's an issue. And my opponent often talks about how bipartisan he is, even though his record, he's voted 93% in step with the American Conservative Union. So it's even our most bipartisan officials are incredibly partisan. And that's why my campaign, I am running with no PAC money and no party money with strings attached, because I don't want my vote bought. I truly want to be independent, an independent voice. Yes, I'm a member of the Democratic Party, but as a representative, I'm going to be a representative for the 96th, even those who didn't vote for me. A voice for all of them. And, I'm young. I can offer this fresh perspective, this new voice to the legislature. I'm not going to do things like they've always been done. I won't change who I am when I get to Madison. I'll change the way things are done in Madison. We cross party lines every day in our communities, and I'm committed to bringing those values to Madison.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg.
Yes, through this legislation process in the last 2 years, 90% of the bills are passed bipartisan. And so, little example of that, farmland preservation bill I tried to champion through, got a hearing in the Senate, came to the end of the session. I reached across to Representative Spreitzer, a Democrat, and we sat down numerous times to write that bill. So there is a lot of bipartisan that goes on. We just hear the partisan at the highest level. And I truly believe it comes right down to leadership. We have to have leaders that are willing and want to talk across the aisle and do not make this partisan. Do not call out the other side or degrade the other side. We have to say, hey, listen to their side, their ideas, and bring them together. And
Thank you.
all good ideas are good.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. And thank you to the members of our media panel for their questions today. We will now transition to closing statements by the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statement. Ms. Jaynes, you can go first. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
As I've said numerous times during this debate, having a difference of opinion is okay. It's good. But once you lose the ability to have a discussion, it's unacceptable. When something as simple as a mask is used to divide us, that's when you know you need a change of leadership. I was raised here. I know the people, I know the issues, and I'm committed to being a champion for rural America and rural Wisconsin. A champion for the 96th. I'm not running to ensure a future for my kids and my grandkids, but I'm running to ensure my future. I have a direct stake in this. Oftentimes, our legislators in Madison, they won't have to deal with the long-term consequences of their policies. My generation will. We will inherit the world created by these policies, the Wisconsin created by these policies. And I hope to earn everyone's vote this November, because I will truly be a representative for the 96th, for all the 96th. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. Your closing statement.
I'd like to, again, thank the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for hosting today's event and hosting the other debates this week and next. Also like to again thank all the events and sponsors of the La Crosse area media members for their participation. To the residents of the 96th Assembly District, if you'd like to continue to have a farmer, a small business owner with local government and cooperative board experience represent you and standing up for your local communities of Anderson, I'd appreciate your vote in November 3rd election. To learn more about me, go for www.oldenburgforassembly.org. Thank you again and hope you have a good day and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you, Representative Oldenburg. This concludes our debate for the 96th District in the Wisconsin State Assembly. Thank you to the members of our media panel from Wisconsin Public Radio, WXOW News 19, and WKBT News 8 Now. Thank you to Ellen Franz from the League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area for your help in keeping track of time. And of course, thank you to Josefine Jaynes and Loren Oldenburg for their participation in this debate. For more information about voting in this election, please visit myvote.wi.gov. For now, I'm Anthony Chergosky from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Thank you for joining us for this debate, and remember to cast your vote.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139. Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip,